Welcome to Club Book with Elle Cosimano. I am Kathleen West, Minneapolis-based writer of four novels, most recently Making Friends Can Be Murder, also a cozy mystery. Before I introduce tonight's guest properly, allow me a moment to tell you a bit more about the unique series that brings her to us. Club Book is a program of MELSA, the Metropolitan Library Service Agency, made possible through the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and coordinated by Library Strategies, part of the Friends of the St. Paul Public Library. Anoka County Library is the co-organizer of this evening's talk. Thanks also to partnering bookseller Red Balloon Bookshelf. A purchase link to Finlay Donovan Digs Her Own Grave and Elle's other books will be available in the comments section of the live stream feed. Have it shipped, pick it up at their lovely store in St. Paul, or have them deliver it personally to your door if you're close in the area. One final housekeeping note, also in the comments, you'll see a survey link. Melsa would greatly appreciate hearing what you think of this club book program. Perhaps you'll forgive us for the tech issues at the top. It's quick and easy. All right, Elle Cosimano is the pen behind the chart-topping Finlay Donovan series. Cosimano first introduced her domestic antihero, a single-parent and strung-out thriller novelist, and Finlay Donovan is killing it. In this debut outing, described by reviewers as part screwball comedy, part morality tale, a wronged wife mistakes Finlay for a contract killer after overhearing her outline the plot of her latest book to a literary agent. Readers have enjoyed the further adventures of Cosimano's writer-turned-sleuth at a steady pace of a book a year. I don't know how you do that, Elle, but we can talk about it in a bit. Her latest, out in March, is Finlay Donovan Digs Her Own Grave. When a dead body turns up in their elderly neighbor's backyard, Finlay and her best friend Vero must unravel neighborhood secrets to stay ahead of a police investigation that soon zeroes in on Finlay's own ex-husband, Stephen. Shelf Awareness praises the book and the series as a whole as a celebration of female friendship and a comical exploration of what happens when life keeps imitating art. So we will have time for reader questions. So put them into the comments on Facebook and they will come to me here and hopefully we can get to a lot of them. And Elle, welcome again for the third time. And can you tell us a little bit about the new book and show us the cover of the next book too?
Absolutely. And tonight feels very on brand for Finley. So it's actually kind of fun and amusing because nothing ever goes right in Finley's universe.
Yeah, that's true.
This sort of feels like this feels right. But no, I'm super excited that I guess tonight we're going to be talking a little bit about Dig's Her Own Grave, which is like the newest book in the series. This is book 5 in the series. And super excited about that one. I think readers were too, because we've been on a lot of adventures with Finley. We've gone lots of exciting places. We just got back from Atlantic City, and this sort of brings it back home. And so it feels almost like a full circle book, even though it's still sort of mid-series. And at the same time, it's a great entry point for new readers to the
Mhm.
series who maybe haven't enjoyed them before. And I was just telling Kathleen that I was so excited because my advance copies of the next book, book 6, just showed up on my doorstep this weekend. And so I'm already getting really excited about this one coming out in March.
That is awesome. Um, can you tell us Finley's origin story? Like, I'm sort of imagining you in the Panera talking to your literary agent, like Finley is in book 1, or did you imagine her, while you were doing something else? How did she come about?
You're actually not that far off the mark. So, Finley's origin stories is one of my very favorite stories to tell because it's such a, I think, a unique origin story for a book. I actually have two beloved critique partners. We've been writing side by side since 2011 when we all first started writing mysteries and thrillers together. We were writing young adults at the time. We were all brand new at this. It was Megan Miranda and Ashley Elston and I. And if you know, you probably know their names. Ashley Elston was First Lie Wins. Megan Miranda's big breakout novel for adults was All the Missing Girls. And
Wow.
so we started writing together back in 2011 as new writers. These were, we'd never published before. And we made fast friends when our literary agent kind of paired us up and said, y'all need a lot of help. You have no idea what you're doing. Please help each other figure out how to write a book. And we've been sort of in a state of parallel play with our careers ever since. And we get together every year for a writer's retreat, and it was at one of our annual writer's retreats back in, I think it was 2017, I believe, maybe 2018, when we were in a very crowded Panera Bread
Oh my God.
having lunch during a Friday lunch rush, like right at noon. The place was packed. And if you've been to a Panera Bread or you have Panera near you, you know that the tables can be packed pretty tightly or
Mhm.
like little sardines in the restaurant. And we were brainstorming over lunch through a particularly sticky plot I was working on that involved a murder. And it wasn't until we were shin deep in the conversation, a fairly graphic conversation, that we realized that the woman at the table beside us had been eavesdropping. And she looked deeply, deeply uncomfortable as I'm asking questions like, someone needs to die. Who should it be? How am I going to do it, and how am I going to get away with this without somebody throwing the book at me? And she must have misinterpreted the conversation, and assumed that we were horrible, horrible people. And she actually got up and left her lunch and walked out of the restaurant, and we laughed so hard as it occurred to us what she must have been thinking. I mean, not knowing who we were, the context of this conversation, it must have sounded awful. And so it was later on that night that we were still laughing about this and recalling the story to someone in Ashley's family. And they asked us to, tell her about our day, and we said we had this funny, funny experience at Panera. And her relative said, "Wouldn't it have been hilarious if this person thought you were contract killers?"
Yes.
And that was the moment. I still remember it like it was yesterday. It just the idea for the story, the pitch, the premise of the story just hit me full in the face. And
Mhm.
I was so obsessed with the idea of this book. I, of course, tried to talk Megan or Ashley into writing it, because I said, I have this great idea for a novel. One of you guys needs to write it. And at the time, Megan had had a massive success breaking into the adult thriller market, and Ashley had just had great success with her first YA rom-com. And so I thought for sure one of these two could pull it off. And they said, "No, Elle, this is your story. This is your book. You have to be the one to do it." And they were the ones who kicked me in the pants and sort of pushed me outside my comfort zone to try writing the first Finley book.
I love that story so much. I love so many things about it that your agent put you together, that
Mhm.
you've all had so much success. That's like very rare to have success in publishing and to have all three of you be in a writing group and all of you have such incredible success. Gosh, I wonder if you could sprinkle some magic dust
I
on the
really
rest
think
of us.
the magic dust there was finding a group of people who support you. Like, I
Mhm.
mean, there's so many people, when you try to do something new or break into something new or do chart uncharted territory, there's so many people, including our own voices, that will tell us it's impossible or it can't be done. And I think for me, and probably for all three of us, it was such a function of finding another, in our case, another really supportive woman who understood what we were going through, we pushed each other outside of our comfort zone to stick with it through every rejection, through every obstacle, through every hurdle. And, when we first started down this road so long ago, we had no experience. We had no idea what we were doing. And, when we met and we first started writing together and critiquing for each other and supporting each other, we had no published books between us. And and now all three of us are New York Times bestsellers, and we've gone on to, I think collectively, we have almost 35 published books. So to me, it's just such a testament to the power of finding people who are going to lift you up and support you through, when you're faced with rejection and hurdles and obstacles, is finding that core group of people who are going to tell you, keep going, you can do this, we believe in you, and they're going to push you maybe when you're ready to give up on yourself. And I think that's kind of how we all did it.
That's amazing. And also that's a really Finley sentiment too. She
Yeah.
seems to like attract people to her that also believe in her and lift her up and give her a million chances and pick her up. Like what you just said really reminds me of her and the people in her life as well.
Yeah, I mean, like in a lot of ways, I dedicated that first book to Megan and Ashley. And in a lot of ways, Vero's character is sort of my homage to female friendship and the
Mhm.
importance of those relationships, that that unconditional support, that unconditional friendship, that person who would bury a body for you, you know? Like, I mean, how fortunate are we to have people like that in our lives? And please, nobody confess to any crimes in the group chat. Like, let's not let's not
Yeah.
get anyone in trouble tonight. But I hope everyone does have, people in their lives that they could turn to for just about anything. And these books were really my homage to the people in my life, the women in my life who made everything possible.
That is really incredible and beautifully said. I'm wondering if you kind of knew right away that Finley would become such a resonant character. Like so many people enjoy her, relate to her, love the chaos of her life. I know as a busy mom, my kids are older now, but I can remember that kind of just like next right thought, next right action. That's all you can do. Did you realize that so many people would fall in love with her and her stories?
I was just glad at the beginning that someone other than my own mother was reading about her. It's, you just never know when you set out to write a book, you never know what the fate of that book is going to be, if it's going to sell, if it will ever see a bookshelf, if people will read it. So I was floored when we first started to get traction with this book and people started discovering it and sharing it, loving it. And the feedback that came in about the way people connected with this character so deeply is just such an awesome, awesome thing. It's been so wonderful to see this kind of grassroots growth. And I think it's just because so many of us can relate to some part of Finley and her struggle. There's a lot of I'm kind of taking readers on these wild adventures, and a lot of them we sort of teeter on the edge of believable. Like we're pushing your disbelief as far as I can possibly push it with these books, and I think that the reason that it works is because I'm anchoring readers in a very real, relatable woman. Like, we can all relate to some part of Finley and who she is and what she's up against. And I think it's the fact that we connect with her on that deep level that we're able to suspend our disbelief and go with her on these wild adventures and and stay grounded in the heart of the story, which is friendship, which is family, found family, which is
Mhm.
rediscovering yourself and reclaiming your sense of self, at different points in your life and motherhood and all of these amazing things that are sort of these underlying themes throughout these otherwise rompy mysteries.
Yeah, I think that's really true. Like the heart in the writing is so strong that I just want to know how she grows and changes, how her relationships are developing. So, yes, I'm willing to go anywhere with her. Also because she's so funny. And this brings up a reader question. The person online submitted the question. It says, many reviewers describe your books as a blend of thriller, comedy, and romance. Is this a blend that you like create intentionally, or does Finley kind of flow from your pen like this? Is it natural, or how does it work?
I love this question because a lot of people don't realize kind of where my writing roots came from. A lot of people think that Finley was my very first novel, but I had actually had 6 published YA novels, very dark thrillers, nothing like Finley before I started writing the Finley books. And so I came from kind of a different publishing market. And um, when we write young adult books, there's really not, the rules are very different. They're very, very loose when it comes to genre. So in the adult world, we have very rigid shelves
Mhm.
where books are categorized. You have romance, you have mystery, you have thriller, you have historical, you have sci-fi, you have fantasy. Everything has kind of its own shelf. But in the young adult market and books written for, middle grade and young adult students, they're sort of all clumped together as kid lit or children's literature. So when you go to a bookstore or you go, to a library, often it's just shelved as YA. So
Hmm.
we don't have all of these very, very rigid rules to follow. We can sort of write the book the way that we envision it, however that may be, however many genres we blend. So my books were, I had historical books with urban fantasy and paranormal elements in them that were also mysteries that also had love elements in them. Like I had everything in the kitchen sink in these books, and I never really thought about that. It was never a conscious choice. It was just, this is the book that I'm writing, and here's everything that needs to go in the mix. And in order to tell the story that I wanted to tell. And it was sort of an eye-opening experience when I wrote the first Finley book and we tried to sell it to a publisher. And I was told it was rejected over and over and over again. We submitted it to 22 publishers, and I think we were rejected right away by 19 of them, because it is a genre blending book. And the question for the publishers was, how do we market this? Where do we position it? Where do we shelve it? They said it's romance and it's mystery and it's thriller and it's comedy, um you know like, but can you pick one? And it's like, well, why do we have to pick one? It's just a fun book, let's just stick it with the fun books, so it was a very, very challenging sell. But I think, to kind of go back to the original question, at the time I didn't think about genre. I just knew that I knew in my head what Finley's voice needed to be. I knew that she was kind of, self-deprecating. There was some dry humor there. Her inner monologue is very similar to my own inner monologue. And that, I mean, her mom voice, I mean, my kids are older too. They're 20 and 23, but, my mom voice is very much Finley's mom voice. And so I knew that there was going to be a dark comedy element to this. I knew I was going in the direction of dark comedy. I know I've always known I love to write mystery. That's sort of my, that's sort of the core genre, sort of all my books sort of bleed out from. And I like books that move fast, and I like books that are exciting, and I like books that make me feel, and I like books with kissing. And so, like, I wanted this book to have all of those things, and I didn't stop to think that there might be a challenge to that until I had already written half of it, and was starting to get the question, what is it? So yeah, no, it didn't turn out that I wasn't originally planning for a genre blend. It's just how I write.
Yeah, and now I feel like maybe you're on the front end of a trend on that because I've seen a lot of
Yeah,
other cozy mystery writers incorporate a lot of the elements that you have, I'm sure in part because of the success of your series, and now people see that they can do that too. So that's pretty cool.
absolutely. It's one of the things I'm the most proud of when I think of the whole Finley series as a whole, as a body of work. One of the things that I'm most proud of is I feel like in some ways Finley kicked the door in for
Mhm.
publishers to think a little bit differently about genre and the way that we find books and the way that we enjoy books, and the fact that, like, that there is an opportunity and a need and a want by readers to have books that are more than one thing and
Yeah.
satisfy more than one reader. And I think one of the reasons these have done so well is because it's the kind of book you can give to just about anybody. They'll find
Yeah.
something that they love in it.
Yeah, a woman that I am friends with on Instagram has posted recently that her daughter, her teenage daughter, is also a big Finley fan and reader. And I think as a middle school teacher myself and sometimes high school teacher, I feel like you can definitely play to your YA audience too with
Mhm.
these books. So
Yeah.
that's super fun. In this particular installment, Digs Her Own Grave, I was really interested in her relationship with Stephen and how generous and forgiving she has been. To her husband. And I wonder if you could talk about like Finley's evolving feelings toward him, through the books and maybe in general, like how you plan her arc of feelings over more than one book at a time.
Yeah. Um, yeah, Steven's an interesting character. And I think it would certainly make sense if Finley wanted to burn his house down and put him in the trunk of a car and drive him off the cliff after everything he put her through. But I feel like in a lot of ways, Finley is the vehicle through which, or I should say, Stephen is the vehicle through which Finley is discovering herself
Oh, sure.
and sort of finding her own strength. And so I like the interplay between them, because it's through those interactions between them that we see her get so much stronger, that
Hmm.
we see her sort of take control of her own life, that we see her, resilience and her intelligence and her um, poise more strongly. And so, it would be really easy to sort of just make him a cardboard cutout that she could
Mhm.
dispose of and move on. But I feel like in some ways that relationship, that co-parenting relationship that she's seeking to get right is such an opportunity to see her grow as a character. And I really like, actually enjoy very much writing those scenes between them. They're infuriating and they're tense and there are times when I just want to punch them through the screen. But like, at the end of the day, I think those scenes are where we see some of Finley's greatest growth.
Yeah, now that you say that, I definitely agree. And I kind of like them as co-parents. I really liked in this book how they handled their daughter's misbehavior at school. What I really liked about it, and my kids are about the same age as yours. I have 21 and 17. But I really liked how neither of them like really took on the mistakes or, the so-called mistake of their daughter or really felt super responsible for it. I
Mhm.
liked how they just let her exist.
Yeah.
Um, that was pretty cool. That's not a question, but I like that part. Somebody in the audience asked a question about Stephen, saying, are the details we learn about Stephen and Finley's relationship canon things? Like, do you have like a little book about what happened to them in the past that you keep referring to? Or are you filling in the backstory as you go along?
I,
Or, yeah.
I'm very much filling in the backstory as I go along, and there's a reason for that. I think that surprises a lot of people. One of the most common questions that I get about the series is, how many books did you plan for the series?
Hmm.
And the answer to that is, I don't get to make that plan. You all get to make that plan. The readers get to make that plan. Ultimately, the number of books that a publisher will contract for a series is entirely dependent on sales and the success, the robustness of the sales, if you will. So, when I first wrote this book, I didn't have the luxury of thinking of it as a multi book arc. I didn't even have the luxury of thinking of it as one published book. I had to hope that one of those 22 publishers was going to come forward and be willing to publish it. And thank goodness they did. But at the time, I just wrote that one book as completely and as well as I could do it, and tried to do it with, you know, I put everything I had into that one book, hoping that that one book would sell. And then, the idea, for most publishers, the idea is that they will run a couple books on a test basis and see how they go. And if they don't sell, the series gets terminated very early. And if they sell really, really well, the series can go longer and longer and longer until it doesn't. And
Hmm.
so, our first deal with Finley, our first contract with Finley was for two books. The publisher said, we will try and see if we're going to do this as an experiment and see if anybody bites on this, because we're not sure how to market it. We don't know how to position it. We're not entirely sure what it is, but we kind of like it. And so let's try two books and see how it goes. Well, at that point, I had only had the idea for the first book, and they said, would you be willing to write a second book? And I said, would you be willing to write me a check? I mean, yeah, let's do this. So, I had to start thinking it in terms then of two books. How do I extend this arc to two books, also with the understanding that it could go on, but it might not. And that's a really, really precarious situation to be in as a writer, because you never want to leave your readers hanging. You want them to feel fulfilled when they finish a series, but also, like I had no, I never to any on any given day, I have never known how many books will be in this series, or where Finley's arc will end, or like how many books I'm going to get. And so I'm grateful for every single one. Right now, we're under contract through book 7. So I'm getting ready to start book 7, to start drafting book 7 for 2027's release. And we are really, really hoping that if enough people buy book 6, we'll be able to enter a contract to do some more beyond that. But each book depends on the success of the last. And so it's hard to say with any certainty. It's hard to plan with any certainty. So when I started out, getting back to the original question, I had no idea what Finley and Stephen's history looked like, what their future would look like, what any of the arcs would look like. I was just able to plan book by book. And now that the series is starting to do so well, we're starting to see this in more in longer running terms, and at the same time looking at sales very carefully and trying to figure out, how many books will the readers support.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is publishing is a business, and I think people don't always think about it that way, but it really does determine what you do next in your career. Uh,
Right.
there's
Exactly.
a fun audience question that came in that I was also wondering about. Somebody said, one of our book club members said, Mrs. Haggerty reminded me of so and so from our neighborhood. And this prompts a question. Have you put anyone from real life into your books? I was also wondering about your literary agent, whether she is um, wearing, Band-Aid dresses and showing up at the police station, etc.
So yeah, my literary agent is super professional and the antithesis of Sylvia. So um, it's safe to say they're very, very, very different. And Sylvia really, for me, is a caricature that represents all of the ridiculousness of publishing. So when I first started writing the Finley book, my writing career was in the toilet. I had published, we talk about sales being really important and never knowing where your career is going to go. I had published 6 YA novels that had all more or less flopped as far as sales go. I had won all tons of awards. I had been nominated for an Edgar. I had won the International Thriller Award. We had starred reviews. We had accolades all over the place, but we could not sell the books. We could not move any copies. And that's kind of the kiss of death with a lot of publishers. So I had been let go by my first 3 publishers. I had 2 books with Penguin, and was let go when those did not do well. And that was supposed to be a series that petered out after the second book because we just didn't sell enough copies. I sold another 2 to Disney. I got let go by Disney. One of the few people who could say I was fired by Disney. But I got let go by Disney when those didn't do well. And then I got picked up for 2 with HarperCollins, and those did not sell as well. So, like when I first started the Finley books, I was really stressing over, at that time I was thinking my career in publishing was over, that there was really nowhere else for me to go. And um and so um I started writing the Finley books in a very, very frustrated place. I was angry with publishing. There were so many things I felt was just so ridiculous about it. And so Sylvia sort of became the vessel that I poured all of my rage into, and she became a caricature that really represented to me the most ridiculous things about my career. And it was so cathartic. It's still so cathartic to write that character, even though she's so different from the wonderful, wonderful people that I've worked with over the years, and so different from my own agent, who is absolutely wonderful and professional and all of the amazing things that you would want and need her to be. But Sylvia was my outlet, I think, for a lot of that.
That is so great. And yes, this is publishing. You're being super real about publishing, and I am in a phase of it as well, And all you can really do is just write the best book that you can write and hope
Yeah.
for the best. And there doesn't
Yeah,
seem to
that's
be
really
really any magic algorithm or thing that I can do beyond that. So, and I think, being able to fall back on that wonderful writing group that you have through all those difficult times. And I think it's really powerful for people to hear that this is how it goes. Like, they see you in People magazine now, they know about the film adaptation and they don't know about the years of struggle that, came before. So that's
great.
pretty cool. Somebody did ask about your advice for aspiring writers. Specifically, it says rather than focus on uh, for aspiring writers who want to write these kind of books that you and I write, like fun book club books. This is a perfect kind of book for the world we live in. People just want to pick up something and enjoy themselves. And you have managed to write this character that has this big beating heart and sentences that zip along. So you get like the quality literary experience, but also a super fun experience. This reader wants to write that kind of book. And so is not sure that like an MFA program would be, right for that, or what do you recommend for a literary education for a genre fiction writer?
Okay, so I will say my degree was in psychology.
Okay.
And I quickly, after graduation, learned it would be very difficult to pay my bills with a BA in psychology. So I wandered into real estate sales and marketing, where I stayed for more than a dozen years. And so I had zero experience with this. I had zero training in this. I was a reader. I was someone who loved books and loved stories. I was someone who, as a kid, enjoyed writing really bad poetry, odes to ex-boyfriends, and when I was even younger than that, putting together little picture books. I was someone who loved books. I was someone who loved reading, and I think that's kind of really, if you ask me, I think that's really the only formal training that is required. A lot of authors that I know came from other careers. Ashley was a wedding photographer. Megan was a biology teacher. We came to this with no formal training. So I don't think, I think it's wonderful for people who do want to pursue an MFA. I think there's a lot to be gained from that. And I think it's a great experience. I've known a lot of people who've really enjoyed their programs, but I know very, very few people who used them to necessarily find their success or get their foot in the door in publishing. It really is about the book. And at the end of the day, as far as these kinds of books go, I think kind of you hit the nail on the head. Like, readers want to feel something when they read a book. I mean, we're storytellers, I think, sometimes more than we are writers. I don't always write beautiful lyrical prose. My first drafts are hideous and they take a lot of work, and I go through rounds and rounds and rounds of revision, and I have that red pen and I'm constantly, constantly fixing myself. And I'm learning every day. I'm getting, better at this every day. But I think really where I found my footing was in the storytelling element. And I think, when you can create a character with a memorable voice in a story that's going to make people feel or think something that maybe they haven't felt or thought before, or just connect with those feelings, that I think is more powerful than necessarily any formal education. And so I think if someone wanted to pursue their MFA for their own reasons, they should, and they would enjoy it, and they should go for it. I don't think it's necessary, and it certainly wasn't part of my process to get here, and it's wasn't a part of a lot of the people that I know who are in this place. So if it's not something you can do, I don't think it's something you have to do.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I'm an English major, but I've always had a day job. I'm a teacher, and I don't have any formal training either. But what you said about like feeling when we're reading, I really felt a lot for Mrs. Haggerty in this latest installment, and I feel like she's kind of become sort of a folk hero. And I wasn't anticipating that when I read the first novel, but she's like this badass feminist, like Avenger. And I wondered how that happened. And this kind of leads into a bigger question, like how do you plan each installment? You mentioned you're going to start drafting your new one. What does that look like when you're planning the story?
Yeah, yeah, Mrs. Haggerty kind of jumped up and surprised me too, because I really didn't like her very much when I started the series. It kind of goes back to, we never know where these books are going to take us. I really did not like her. And it wasn't until I was sort of forced to get to know her to write this book that I realized is who she was. And it turns she's one of my favorites. I just love her so much. And I think readers have really connected with her in surprising and fun ways in this installment. And I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't read this installment yet, but she is going to surprise you, and I hope make you laugh. And she's wonderful, but I did not see that coming. And so it wasn't really until I realized that I was writing a book and she was going to be like one of these focal characters that I really had to dig into, um, you know, what motivates her, and who is she, and what is her family situation, and what was her background, and what makes Mrs. Haggerty tick. And when I did, it was really exciting and surprising and wonderful to discover all that. She's fantastic. But when I start out with a new book, like book 7 going in now, I sort of set myself up for better or worse. In the last page of every Finley book, I sort of hint at where we're going with the next one. And I leave you like on a little precipice, hopefully, like getting really excited for what's coming and maybe a little shocked at what's coming. And so the fun thing about that is it always gives me a sense of direction. I know where my launching point is for the next story. The bad thing about that is I've written myself into a corner. So if that is not where I want to go with the next one, too bad, so sad. Here's where we are. So I know once the last book is finished, I know where the next one is going, and I always start there. You know, what is the central mystery that we're going to solve? And the mystery is really the engine of the story. It's what propels the plot. And everything else I already know. I know these characters. I know these relationships. I know their inner struggles and those situations. The mystery is usually where I start. So, what is the engine of the story that's going to pull the plot forward? You know, and once I know that central mystery, I can sort of start building a skeleton of the story from there. And I try to know the beginning of the story and roughly where I want to be at the end and a few really critical points in between. And those are usually memorable points, the things that we remember as the big, changing, the crossroads of the story or when something important happens. And so I usually try to have a pretty good sense of some of those. And I try to have a pretty good sense of where is my romantic arc going, where is my friendship arc going, these little subplots that we have, how can I make those align with that mystery? And then I just write and I try to play in the sandbox and I give myself room for discovery and I give myself room to make mistakes. And sometimes that means scrapping an entire book because I realize when I get to the end, it didn't work. And that's a painful, awful, horrible place to be, but it happens. And so I do write once I kind of know the skeleton of the story. I write completely by the seat of my pants, um, and try to make fun discoveries along the way that make me gasp, because then you're gonna gasp and we're all gonna have a good time. So if I'm having fun and surprising myself and running into all kinds of fun and kind of chaotic moments sort of because I'm experiencing the book by the seat of my pants, you might come away with that same feeling of like this is an adventure and we're not entirely sure where we're going and somehow it's all coming together and we just have a good time. And so as I try to have fun while I'm writing because I feel like if I'm having fun, you're going to have fun when you're reading them.
One of the readers wanted to know, speaking of fun, if there was a certain installment of the Finley series that was the most fun, or if you're able to say, like, if you have a favorite of the series.
It's so hard. It's like asking who's your favorite child. So I love all of them for different reasons. And so the very first book in the series is closest to my heart because it was the book that sort of started it all. It was the book that rekindled my career. It was the book that helped me find my footing in the adult mystery space. It's the book where people first fell in love with Finley. And so for me, that book will always hold a very, very special place in my heart. The book I had the most fun writing was Rolls the Dice. When we went to Atlantic City, I have never had so much fun writing a book before. I've never laughed so hard drafting a book as I did writing that book. I mean, the shenanigans that we got in, like we left no stone unturned in Atlantic City, and I just had the best time with it. I love the way that so many of the different storylines sort of converged and came together. I felt like it had such a satisfying ending, and it was just such a hoot. It was just such a hoot to write. Um, and then the book I'm probably most proud of was Digs Her Own Grave. This one that we're talking about tonight with Mrs. Haggerty, because that was the book that I got almost all the way through and realized I had to start over because it wasn't working. And I was when I started over, uh, I was already a month past my deadline when I had to start the book over. And so if you can imagine the pressure at that point, we already had a cover, we already had a title, we already had a release date. We already had like everything was sort of out, like pre-orders were live, And I had to go back and say, this book isn't working. I need to start again. And sometimes that happens. And I'm very, very fortunate that we had such a supportive team behind me to help make it possible. And I remember the stress. I remember I almost didn't write this book. That's where we were. I remember my son was home for break. He'd just come home for summer break, and he found me crying on the couch, and he said, "Mom, what's wrong?" And I said, "I don't think I'm going to be able to write this book. I don't think I'm going to be finished it. It's terrible. It's not working. Nothing is working." And he gave me the best advice. He's 19 at the time. He gave me the best advice I've ever heard in my entire career of writing and publishing. And it's stuck with me to this day. But he said, "Mom," he said, "they can't all be bangers." And it was just such an eye-opening moment, like this simple, it like reframed everything.
Mhm.
And it like made me realize that I was trying to please everyone. I had too many voices in my head. I was trying to make this everyone's book instead of my book. And that's hard because when you're in a series, like everyone expects different things, everyone wants different things. You've got we've got we're published in 24 languages now around the world. We've got a lot of people who have input into the process and who are have a vested interest in the success of these books, and that's so much pressure, and I had put all of this pressure on myself. And in that moment I realized I can't set out to write the perfect book. I have to set out to write my book and the best book that I can write. And I sort of tuned out all of those external pressures and just wrote the book I wanted to write. And it worked, and it was like it turned out we got a banger. And
Yeah.
so like this one has turned out to be probably the most beloved book in the series next to book one.
Oh my gosh. That is just I'm really interested to hear because I've had to throw away manuscripts as well, but never in those circumstances where you have this successful series, you feel pressure to get it done. Everyone's expecting the next book. Like I can't even imagine what that would have felt like. And that also seems like a very Finlay thing to have happen.
Yeah. Oh
You
yeah.
know,
Oh yeah. It was
and
terrifying. And I'm not like Finley in that sense. Like I am very much a planner and an organizer. I'm very much a type A personality. If my life were as chaotic as Finley's, I think I'd lose my mind. And so for me to get to that point it was terrifying, and it was something I wasn't sure I would get over. And so that book became the book I'm most proud of because it was the book
Mhm.
I had to overcome the biggest hurdles to pull it off. And it was terrifying when it went out in draft form to early reviewers, because I just didn't know. I still was that in that very uncertain place in my own head. Did we pull this off? And when the reviews started coming in, they were just I was over the moon. I mean, it was just such a great. So yeah, the book I'm most proud of is definitely Diggs Her Own Grave.
Yeah, that happened to me too. My most recent book was so hard to write, and I almost stopped writing. I asked my agent how to return the advance. Like I was like, I can't do it.
Yeah.
I'm done. So much crying, and it turned into my funniest book, and it's the best reviewed. So I don't
Yeah,
know.
and
That's
I
kind of
mean,
strange.
a lot of people don't realize, like when Finley's talking about like she might have to give her advance back, like these things happen. Like,
Yes,
these
it's
are the
bad.
things, these are the terrors that keep us up at night. So
All
yeah.
right. Well, you said bangers, which makes me think of Taylor Swift. How much do you like Taylor Swift, and do you like the new album?
I have, oh my gosh, you're calling me out. You're rolling me under the bus. I have not
Sorry.
yet listened to the new album
Okay, that's all right. I was just wondering.
because I have not yet seen or listened to anything because I have been buried in the writer's cave. I just this week turned in the final pass pages for Crosses the Line.
Mhm.
So like I know it looks all bound and pretty, but I made 490 corrections to this book after the review copy came out. So I was working on that this month, and I just finished the revisions of a new series that I'm kicking off next year, which we have not technically formally announced yet. So readers here or viewers here will get the skinny early. I am co-writing a new series alongside Finley, so it's separate, but we're gonna make it happen. And it is also genre bending, murder mystery rom-com fun, lots of shenanigans, but with a Christmas twist. And our first book is called Home for the Homicides, and it will be out next October. So,
Oh my gosh, that is the coolest. And you're like Richard Osman with his two series at the same time too.
and I
That's
tell you
epic.
though, it's the extra special part is that this is a co-written series. I'm writing it with Hannah Morrissey. And
Okay.
if you've read her books, she writes the Black Harbor
Okay.
series. She writes very, very dark procedurals. And I am a massive fan of her books, but she has a funny bone that most people have never seen. And we have had the most fun writing these books together. So she and I are going to have big announcements, big formal announcements for the series in January.
Oh, I can't wait. I'm sure everyone who watches this will be first in line to get their hands on that. And since you mentioned Hannah, I was wondering about your favorite authors. Like, who do you make sure who's on your auto buy list, and who do you make sure to read every single one?
Oh my gosh, I have so many, and I think that's a function of like just working in publishing. We get so many books early, like to review early, and so I end up falling in love with everyone.
Mhm.
Um, and so I have a lot of people on my auto buy list, and I have like the people who originally inspired me to write genre bending books. The Janet Ivanovich was iconic when with the Stephanie Plum series. Dorinda Jones, I'm a huge fan of Charlie David or the Charlie Davidsons. I love um, Charlene Harris and the Sookie Stackhouse books. Like those were the ones that sort of like I cut my teeth reading that sort of inspired me to go down this road of like I can do this. I can marry comedy and I can marry um, mystery and romance and make a book that does all of these things. And then more recently, for fans of Finlay, I'm a huge fan of Jesse Sutanto.
Oh yeah.
Vera Wang's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers. Um, and then there's some newer authors that are coming out this year. I just read a book by Jack Friday called Killer Vibes, which I thought was just so well done, and that's also a very kind of dark comedy mystery sort of mashup. So I mean, there's so many. If you'd like, and if the readers would like, I can make a great list of some books and some authors that if you like the Finley books, that these would appeal to you, and I can maybe you guys can share it on your Facebook or with your readers.
Yeah, I'm sure that we would love that. An audience question came in when you mentioned co-writing.
Yeah.
People want to know about the process and how it's different. Do you split up the work or like POVs, or how does it work?
Yeah, we're sort of we call ourselves a machine, a little writing machine. And I think this works really well for us. We're very fortunate because the book we're writing is a alternating point of view, the male character and the female character. And so we each staked our claim to one voice, and so we alternate chapters, but it also works really well because I'm a night owl and she's an early bird.
Oh.
So she gets up we have a shared document, like a Google document, and she gets up early in the morning. She goes for her 5 mile run or whatever it is. I have no idea how she does it, but she goes out for her run and she comes back and she starts writing at like 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, and she'll knock out her chapter in the morning. And I am the night owl who typically writes in the evening. So in the evening, I'll go in and I'll see what she's written, and I pick up where she left off, and we piggyback off of each other. And so we can write very quickly and very efficiently this way. And we just went through our first rounds of revision, and it worked much the same way. We were editing each other's work as we were going. But we each have a voice that we kind of claim as our own, that we sort of like that becomes our voice, and we sort of anchor ourselves in that character. And at the end of the day, we sort of respect like each other's vision for where we want that to go. And it works beautifully. It's fun. It's probably the most fun book I've ever written, just because it's not such a lonely process when you can do it with someone else. It's a hoot. And I'm really excited. I'm really excited. So we'll see where this goes.
Yeah, that sounds super fun. The Friends of the Library mentioned also that Jessie Sutanto was a club book author last May. So if people want to see her interview, you can find that where the club book posts are listed. So that's kind of cool too. Another reader question that came in our last few minutes here is, what is one thing that you rarely get asked, but you think would be really interesting for us to know? Like, do you have any secrets that people don't ask you about?
Oh gosh, I mean, I wouldn't call them secrets, but I do have things that I would love to convey to all of my readers. One of the things a lot of my readers don't know is that we spend a lot of time and energy creating bonus content for Finley readers. We have created something called the Hit Mom Book Club, which is basically book club discussion guides with lots of fun extras. And there's one for each book. They're downloadable on my website, and they come with discussion questions and fun playlists, and there are games and fun content written from Finley and Vero's point of view. So there's a little bit of comedy in some of those too. And we have just a really, really good time putting those together. And I'm always surprised how few people realize that that they're out there. So if you go to my website, we have so many fun things. We've got the merch shop there. We've got the discussion questions there. We've got FAQs there, the most frequently asked questions. The biggest one I get is about the TV series. There's information there too. My website is a wealth of information. I wish more people would ask me about it.
That's cool. Someone did mention the TV adaptation and wanted to know if you're involved in it, which is probably on the FAQ, but
Yeah, it's I'm involved to an extent. Not so much at this point. Like it was, I had a lot of involvement in terms of choosing the studio and producer, but now that they're kind of off and doing their own thing, like that's not really my department. My focus is writing the books to give them more content to make. So at this point I can't we're not ready to make a formal announcement yet, so I'm not allowed to spill the specific beans, but I can say we do have a TV option with a major studio, with a major producer, with a major showrunner, and now tied to a major streamer. So
okay.
we are
Is there like
really,
a is
we're
there a
really
major actor? Like, is Finley picked?
We
No.
do
Okay.
not have talent yet. They're right now we're writing the pilot episodes. So we're hoping that we can kind of get everything lined up in 2026 to get a green light. So that's just cross your fingers, everybody. We need lots of finger crossing. So
Oh my gosh, it's like an updated Murder She Wrote with like a younger, hipper heroine. I'm very
I'm so
excited.
excited. I'm so
Yeah,
excited.
that sounds amazing. Somebody did mention the merch. The reader said, I love your merch, and I don't know why more authors don't offer cute bookish things. She has the Vero apron. And she wanted to know if the storefront was your idea or if someone on your team suggested it to you.
It is my idea. I run it all myself. I create it all myself. It's all at my expense, and that is why more authors don't do it. If in hindsight being 2020, I probably wouldn't have. It's a lot of work, and it's very not many readers find it. It is fun. It's fun just for me, but it is a time-consuming, expensive, difficult endeavor, and most of us are not cut out for that sort of thing. We're cut out to hang out in our pajamas and write books. That's what we do. But I am. There's nothing more exciting to me than going to a Finley event and seeing someone wearing a Finley T-shirt. I just think that's the coolest thing ever. So in that regard, it's been fantastic. But yeah, but there is a reason more authors don't do it. It's hard, and we don't like we're sort of a one-man show. I think a lot of people don't realize that the publishers don't do these sorts of things for us. So yeah, it's a lot. But if you did buy something at the merch shop, thank you. And I hope I'll see you wearing it someday.
Well, maybe just one last question before we close out, but you have been saying we a lot, like we are working on this part of the Finley story. Do you mean you and your editor or you and your agent? Who's we?
So we as Team Finley, and that's
Okay.
sort of a very loose team because loose term because we have a very big team. But like for me, these books are successful because it takes a village, and I've got a great village. So I have the most wonderful literary agent. I have the most amazing editor, and I have a really fantastic relationship with her. And I couldn't imagine writing these books with anyone else. We have publicists, and we have sales and marketing people, and we have all of the people who work behind the scenes in cover design and retail sales and books and or schools and libraries. And there are just so many different facets to this business. I think that so many people don't see from the outside. And it really does take a team to make a series successful like this. So when I say we, I can't take credit for all of this. It's so many people who have helped lift these books up and made them as wonderful and as bingeable as they are.
Wow. I mean, I am so grateful to have had this opportunity to talk with you. And I just think that what's coming through, like when you say that, when you share credit for your work and when you talk about the struggles that you've had and you do it with so much humility and realness, I think that everyone can root for you as much as they root for Finley. So this has been such a pleasure. And I want to thank you so much for joining Club Book. And I feel super grateful that I got to be the one to talk to you. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. This is so much fun. And thanks to everyone who came out to watch our little watch party tonight.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
thanks for reading.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. We can't wait for the next book. I know I have a couple to catch up on too, so this is going to be a great reading months for me and the new series too. I'll be busy for a while.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a little script to read for my outro, so I'm going to do that now. This is all we have time for this evening. Thank you again, Elle, for penciling us into your busy fall, especially with all the struggles that you're having at home. We're really grateful for your time tonight.
Thank
This
you.
has been a virtual presentation of Club Book, a long-running library series of Melsa, made possible by the Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund. Special thanks again to the Anoka County Library for the part they played in bringing Elle to us. Before you log off, look for the Club Book survey link, which is in the comments, and we will be projected in place of my video momentarily. Last, consider joining Club Book on Wednesday, October 29th for their next program. This one in person and featuring chart-topping novelist Marjan Kamali. Marjan will appear at Hayden Heights Library, part of the St. Paul Public Library. Attendance at this in-person program is free, but seating is on a first-come, first-served basis. Visit clubbook.org for more details on this and other upcoming fall events. Have a great night, everyone.